All right, we have an exciting episode on our hands. We have the special guest, Thomas Brown, a game developer and designer based in Los Angeles, California. He's passionate about so many things, but the few that rise to the top always seem to be game design and development, travel, and organization. He's been working for himself as an entrepreneur for about 5 years now. And as he says, hustling every year to pay those bills, fund his dreams, and learn as much as he can along the way. While he used to dabble in all things programming, all the way while making games, he's just recently switched to full-time game design and development and couldn't be happier. He graduated from UC Santa Cruz with a computer science degree with a focus in games. And again, as he says, who really uses those pieces of paper anyways? Learning is so much more fun outside those dark-lit boxes we call classrooms. Man, this guy, Thomas, I absolutely love him. You all are in for a treat. He is totally full of life. This introduction gives you a treat and just a little bit of who he is. He's a world traveler, manages to travel to a different country for 3 months out of the year. He's just a rebel. He refused to work for someone else and went into the entrepreneur world, influenced his girlfriend to do the same, and is an inspiration, fun guy to be around. He's funny, and just you all are going to have a blast. Enjoy the episode. We are the Underground Heroes Podcast. I am your host, Sammy Villanueva. I am with my brother and my co-host, Brandon Holder. We are the founders of Heroes, the men's mastermind. Brandon, why don't you let the audience know why we started the Underground Heroes Podcast?
Absolutely. You know, guys, in a society where men are left alone, leading to destruction and praised for being self-made men, the Underground Heroes Podcast recognizes that alone we are simply human. But by listening and interacting together, we can be heroes. Underground Heroes is a one-of-a-kind podcast telling the stories of men who are fighting in the trenches of life in the midst of discovering their full potential. This podcast stands alone, and it is unlike so many other podcasts that only focus on those who have arrived. With each show, we aim to inspire, connect, and give hope by highlighting in real time those in pursuit.
I don't need recognition. I'm on a mission. I'm paying dues. I'm in position.
Actually, lately, my sister's been cooking up so
funny.
much. Towards midway, I can hear my fans just working
You pick the space, you press play, all the mics explode.
Oh, man.
We should leave this intro too, because there's always some awkward moving beginning of me either getting into the chair after I hit record and then okay, we're ready, and we're supposed to cut it off and edit it, but it's not.
Work your
It's not
way
gonna happen.
into the chair. That should be your intro to every one of your podcasts.
Editing's old, dude.
Yeah,
if you have an editor and you're a podcaster, get out of here. That's so old.
No, dude, we want awkward, find your way to your chair intros. That's going to be the best way. Welcome to the Heroes Podcast, and then it just shows Sam trying to find his way into his chair for an hour.
It's
raw, uncut.
That's how it goes, bro.
We have an unfettered pulpit. We have everything.
Hey, bro.
Dig it.
Yeah.
That was the best line.
Yeah, I was like, wow, what with the fucking grammar? That was impressive. I'm like,
Don't let his hair fool you,
unfettered
bro.
pulpit. That was really impressive.
He's kind of
He's
smart.
prepared, dude.
He
You wrote
did.
that down.
I
Literally
know,
in his
dude.
notebook, he has 2 words, unfettered pulpit. He's like, takes it out, he has his notes. He's like, yeah, with the unfettered pulpit. I'm like, wow.
I'm like, does that work?
Yeah. I'm like, you're so smart. I don't even know if that makes any sense. I'm just going
All
to
right.
take your word for it.
We were hoping to get through Thomas's show in a half hour. This is looking more like it's going to be an hour and a half.
All right. So welcome to the Underground Heroes Podcast episode.
Yeah.
We
We don't number them.
Episode, we don't number them.
That's right.
I love it. Let's do it.
And honestly, the scale is going to be how good your podcast is, and then we'll figure out whether
All
or
right.
not you come up at the top,
All right,
or
so I'm 12,
we'll get rid of you.
obviously. I'm number 12.
We're here with Thomas Brown, one of the members of the Heroes community, and myself, Sammy Villanueva, host of the Underground Heroes Podcast, and my co-host, Brandon Holder. Brandon, you want to say what's up, man?
What's up?
Literally said what's up. I
We're
like
here
that.
early morning, Pasadena at the WeWork over
WeWork.
here, and Thomas hooked us up with this amazing podcast studio.
Oh, thank you.
Is designed just for
pay a
podcasts.
hefty price for this. Got to use as much of it as I can.
Bill it to Heroes Incorporated.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
So we appreciate.
I'm like,
the
dope. You got my
space.
rent for the month. That's fucking awesome. I would have done this more often if that was the case.
We have an audience of about one.
Yeah,
someone
one
in the-
guy. Yeah, bring it
yeah,
back.
he's over there cleaning the kitchen right now.
Yeah, it's dope.
But
Yeah.
he's got a front row view of the Underground Heroes podcast.
Yep.
No, this is a cool room, man. We appreciate you doing it
No
and taking
problem.
time. Thomas is Thomas is my brother-in-law. He's been in the Heroes community for a little bit. He was actually, I think, the second session when I brought it to E-Rock. You kind of checked it out, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, no, I think it was
it might
the
have
first
been
session.
first, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember launching it with Keegan and
Yeah.
all the other
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
And we
he
had
was
that.
first.
There was like 2.5 people in the audience.
Yeah.
Thomas was one of them.
I was
Hey,
like,
you got to start somewhere.
That's
right.
right. Heck
That's right.
yeah. And look at us now.
I know, man.
Official
3
microphones
mics. I
and
know.
everything.
No, we're not official.
Yeah, we're not. Definitely not. But yeah, so again, the goal of this podcast, and really just to kind of give you an idea, Thomas, too, is the name, and we've talked about it before on Zoom calls and in meetings, is Underground Heroes. And really what we're trying to highlight are, the men in the trenches. Actually, I think you even kind of threw that line out there when we were talking about
Yeah, I think-
ideas.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And the goal of it is to really just talk about life in the real, right? Because on the podcast scene right now, in the business world or personal development, I joke and I say there's like 7 guys that go on each other's podcasts and say, hey, I got another book I just released. Hey, I just made another $1 million. And that's all good and we can learn from them. But
Yeah.
I feel like the chasm or the gap between the listener, at least for me, and that person is a little bit too big, right? And they'll
Yeah.
highlight, oh yeah, this is who I was 30 years ago. But, we want to find and get with the men and speak to those men that are going to be those guys in 5 years and 10 years and see how they're balancing life right now, right? Work, relationships, fun, everything. And, I think you're going to fit in perfectly because this guy is like the ideal of an entrepreneur. And, he's living the life. He has a space here at WeWork with his girlfriend. He's just talking about how he travels 3 months out of the year to another place in the world.
Yeah.
And just making it on his own. You've been in business now for how long?
About 5 years.
5 years, man, just killing it. And, I just recently launched out full time on my own and it's harder than it looks. I looked at Thomas, I was like, if Thomas can do it, then I can.
That's right. That's
But
right.
it's way harder, right? So anyway, that's the goal of the podcast. We really want to highlight the story, what you've been in, what you're going through, and then even where you're going to be heading in the future.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So Brandon, you want to say anything before we get rocking?
Yeah, man, this is an amazing guy to get to know over the years, family friend. I've been friends with Sammy for a while, so since I've known Sammy, I've known Thomas. We've had some fun experiences and times together. I look forward to many more, but right now I look forward to diving into his story, a little bit of his background, where he came from, where he's headed. I know what he's doing now, and I'm excited for the future and the impact this man's going to have. So let's dive in, man.
Sweet.
Let's do it. Yeah. So what we'll do, Thomas, we'll get into like what's going on with your life now. But
Okay.
I think for everyone that's listening, one of the things that Brendan and I talked about when we launched this is we want to give a little bit about like where you came from, right?
Okay.
And I feel like that's where people can connect. Hey, maybe I had a similar background or I had a similar upbringing. And I think it's important to create context of where your current situation is and then how you think about it and where you're going.
Okay.
So for the background or the upbringing, one of the questions we have is what is special about your background or your upbringing that has made you who you are today?
Wow, this is a tough question. I think a lot about that, honestly. I honestly don't know. Honestly, this is, I guess what I would lean on is, I think I hate like things that make me feel stuck in a place, like just prescribed, like this is the thing that you have to do because we all agree that you have to do this thing. So I feel like for me growing up, that thing was like school. Like I hated school. I loathed it.
Everyone does. Bro.
Yeah.
Everyone does. At one point, people
Like-
just lie and they don't say it.
Yeah,
Even the
like-
A students, they hate it.
For me, I was like, I felt like really stuck when I was in school. I felt like there was a lot of things that I couldn't see the value of school at the time. Like I felt like I always wanted to kind of do my thing, right? Like I've always felt like that. I want to do this just because I want to do this, right? I think growing up, I had a pretty normal childhood, right? Like both my parents worked. Had a group of core friends that I've known that I went to elementary school with, that I grew up with, and still are my friends today. But I mean, I would say that I guess the question was, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, no, you got it. I think, and it's interesting because it really highlights, and we've talked about this many times. The question is like, what's special about your upbringing or your background that's created who you are today?
Yeah.
And the first thing you led with was, school, creating like this box of feeling stuck.
Yeah.
Right. And so what did you do as you like, do you remember the first time you felt that? Was it like kindergarten when you're like, this is dumb? Or like, when was that moment that you were like,
that's a good question. I feel like, I guess the first moment I felt, so my friends still talk about this moment. They still tease me about
it's infamous.
This. Literally, like, when I was in first grade going to class, my friends still tease me about the fact that, like, I was crying to my mom, like, that I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And then I missed my brother Steven, actually, because he was going off to the Navy. But I think that was like I was just like a kid. I didn't know how to interpret those feelings. So I leaned on, I mean, I'm sure I did miss my brother too, but
make sure you
I
plug
really
that
think
real
I
quick.
was just like, fuck, I got to sit in this box for 8 hours. Like,
literally.
Yeah. I mean, I met, like I said, the people I met there are still my friends today. So, you got to take from it what you can.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel like I guess on top of that, like, work was also when my parents made me get a job when I was like 15, right? Working as like a host at a restaurant. And my best friend's dad that I met in elementary school was the general manager. And luckily, like, I mean, I liked that aspect and liked the people, but also there, I was like, oh, I hate this. Like, I remember driving into work, feeling like that. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like growing up, I had a lot of these feelings of like, when I finish school, when I finish like this adolescent phase, like, nobody will ever tell me what I need to do again.
That's
like
right.
that's my driving force. Like, I feel like I want to create my own rules and destiny, even if that means I screw up 1,000 times. I don't care, like, because I'm calling the shots in my life. I don't know.
Yeah.
Love that. Love
that's
that.
awesome.
That's so relatable too. I think most of
for
the men
sure.
and people listening to this
Or
probably
watching.
and watching
Thank you.
have that experience. Like, even if you're not an entrepreneur, but there's an itch inside. There's something just like going through that cookie cutter box assembly line system that's so screwed up today. It's broken, that educational system. Sorry for any teachers and whatnot out there, but it really is.
They know.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just like you're forcing through these, and there's some kids who are more vocal about it. Other kids go through it and they do fine, but they get the results of it in the end when they follow through the system.
Yeah.
And you're someone who recognized that early on,
Yeah.
broke free from that box. And I mean, that's awesome. That's so relatable, because I think you're going to have to talk about that a little bit more of like, how did you overcome the fear of breaking out of that? Because obviously you had parents who were teaching you what they knew best, the right thing to do.
Did your mom let you stay home that day?
Oh my God. My mom, when it came to school, was just like, if I wanted to stay home, I literally would try every trick in the book. This is how bad this gets. One time I woke up and my pillow was bloody, right? My pillow was bloody.
Are you not telling us the story behind that, bro? If you punched yourself enough times to make yourself bleed so you wouldn't go to school.
No, but I remember waking up and I was like, oh crap, like my pillow's bloody. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And I used to get nosebleeds a lot. But my mom came in and she's like, why is your pillow bloody? And I was like, I don't know, and then like a few minutes passes and I'm like, I probably got a nosebleed but my mom thought it could have been anything. So she's like, we got to take you to the doctor. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get out of school. I got to ride this wave. So I was just like, yeah, I don't know, Mom. Like, we
could be my brain.
That's how bad it was. And I didn't want to go to school. I was willing to risk my mom thinking I had like some weird like blood coming out of you know what I mean? Like, she was terrified, and I took advantage. That's terrible. But that's how much I hated it. That's how much I hated it. But
hey man, that's real, dude.
But that's real, man. Yeah. So I feel, I don't know.
Are there any events that I mean, besides that one that you're crying, to not want to go home, or the bloody nose, like any other events that stand out that kind of fit into who you are today, that like you're like, man, that was a key event?
Key events.
And it could be down the same path, right? Of like this resistance to the system, like same type of thing, or it could be something else.
I guess I don't know if I have key events, but I have key feelings, right? Like, I remember feeling like when I was in school, and I think this is kind of another driving factor was like, I feel like you get placed in this box, right? So if you're somebody that doesn't fit in the box, you're kind of relegated to that box of this kid is always going to be the kid that he doesn't sit still. He doesn't want to be here, right? And so he's the troublemaker kid.
Right.
Well, really, that kid is just like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I was reaching up for help. Maybe I just felt like somebody help me make sense of this.
Sure.
When you're a kid, you don't know, So you get put in this box, and I feel like once I was put in that box, I kind of just continued in that box.
Sure.
And so I remember feeling like all these people are writing me off, and I didn't know how to get out of that. And so I remember feeling this feeling of frustration, like I don't know, like maybe people should be trying harder to like, I don't know, I guess a feeling of helplessness. Maybe that's what it was, like frustration, helplessness, like the people that are supposed to be there helping you are the ones kind of bringing you down.
Sure.
Like so those were, I would say, teachers, but some teachers. I also had the inverse experience of really good teachers making me feel like, oh my God, like, wow, school could be great. Like it really could, like with the right
learning
people teaching you and telling you like, you can do this. It's amazing feeling. It makes you feel like, wow, like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like I had both these feelings, feeling of being stuck and a feeling of like people believing in you when you were a kid. That makes you feel like, wow, like with the right people in your life. And maybe that made me feel like I want to be one of those people.
Yeah.
I want to be the teacher or the person that can tell somebody that's struggling or being frustrated or that's frustrated by the system.
Sure.
You can do it. Like you can do anything. It doesn't matter who writes you off.
That's right.
Like what's going on in your life. Like, I don't know. It was just a powerful feeling. It was like a breath of fresh air, like, wow, the power people have just,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I think it's the sad thing is that even the people that are leading these children, or even in the workspace, like these leaders, they don't take the opportunity to be empathetic to an individual.
Yeah.
It's more of a process, and you miss out on opportunities to pour life into people who need it at the moment, and I think it's cool that you had both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone that's listening or watching, like if you do have someone who's encouraging you and you feel the same way, because I know I did, lean into that, because there's not a lot of them.
Yeah,
right?
There's not.
Who were some of the key factors that were like helping you as you dealt with like this get me out of jail feeling, this box feeling?
I guess you mean like who were the people or the
who were some of these people that helped you or encouraged you, teachers?
Like I guess just I had I remember I had a biology teacher that I felt like it was kind of, I mean, I think too there's a certain amount of responsibility you have to take too, right? Like so I feel like as a kid it's hard to tell a kid like you have to take responsibility, because you're a kid, you're trying to make sense of the world. But I would say things didn't really get better until I kind of said, you know what? I'm done like writing everything off. Like I want to see if I can do this. So I felt that, but I also felt like my biology teacher in high school, he also had this attitude of like, I don't give a shit, excuse my language, like where you came from, who you are.
Sure.
When you're in this classroom, you're capable.
Yep.
Right? You're capable, and there's no excuses here. There's no excuses that are good enough for me, because I feel like it came from a really good place, that he genuinely believed you have potential. And like my job is to help you realize that.
Yeah. So
he was an emotional guy. Like he would get angry, frustrated, but I knew you could tell it was from a good place. And it makes you feel like, wow, this guy believes in me.
Yeah.
That is powerful. When somebody believes in you, it imparts that on you.
Yeah.
So that I feel like was a key person that lifted me up.
That's awesome.
I think that sometimes that's all people, young adults, even as adults, that's all we need as we like venture into new uncharted territories. We have fear, and really it's like we don't need to know how. Like we can do enough research and get enough education on something to know everything about what we really need to do to take action.
Yeah.
But it's like what holds us back is just having one other person who truly believes in you.
Yeah.
And it just takes that one person who consistently says,
Dude,
I believe in you, I
it's
believe
so
in you,
true.
that propels you to the next level.
Yeah.
That helps you to overcome that fear that you're facing right in front of you.
Yeah.
Not anything far beyond, like, I think, the bigger mountains, but it's just like that belief from one individual. It's powerful. You can make such a huge difference. Believing in your kids, believing in people that surround you, even believing in older adults, our parents even. I see sometimes with my own, family and parents, it's just like, man, if I were to take the time and just show appreciation and belief that, hey, you're still being a great parent, you're still doing so many great things. Like, how far can that go?
Yeah.
That belief in someone is huge.
Yeah.
Was it Mr. Martinez?
Yeah.
I had that teacher as well.
Yeah.
I felt the same thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because
Genuine care,
who I was.
big heart. Like I think I performed the best in his class.
Yeah.
And it was only because I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. All the other classes, I was like, yeah, I'll do I'll try.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel like, I had a lot. I don't mean to discount any of the other people, right? Because I think, honestly, there's so many things that, like, we're not talking about that are factors, right? Sure. Like, I have a good support network in my life. Genuinely, like, these guys, huge, right? Like, I also feel like just growing up, like, I always knew my parents wanted the best for me. Even if they sometimes couldn't communicate that. Like, my dad had a rough childhood, and, he wasn't always the best at communicating the best way to move forward in life.
Sure.
However, I always knew it was coming from a good place,
That's good.
But my point is, like, I had people in my life that were genuinely trying to bring me up, right? However, the place I was in 40 hours a week, right? This is why I think the entrepreneur thing got me, right? Which is like, I have this huge support network, this amazing support network, but for 40 hours a week, I was in a place that I hated, right? And so
you're like, I just left school. Why am I going back to another place that is like, kind of the same?
And it's interesting because it's like, at that point, you have all these things, but when you're in a place for 40 hours a week that you hate, it was made very apparent to me that, like, I never want to put myself in a situation for the vast majority of my time, I'm not happy.
That's perfect. That's a perfect transition, because the next question is, like, when did that, like, the dream strike you, right? And this is different for everyone. And it sounds like entrepreneurship was almost the potential answer, right? But I want to go back to, like, the younger Thomas of not knowing that it was going to be the potential answer. Like, when did it hit you, if you can remember, when it was like 40 hours suck, job is like school, maybe it's this? Like, when was that?
It's interesting because I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like I never thought, hindsight's 2020. It's so hard to know if I always thought this or not, but, like, all I know is there was no key, like, oh, this is,
sure.
I felt like I always knew inside, because I've just, like I said, that like,
that build up.
As long as from when I was 5 years old, then I went to wherever, like, school. I think it's first grade, right? I think having that feeling of, like, I'm stuck here. I think that I always knew, like,
you were gonna try to find something.
I'm not gonna do. Like I said, the driving force was, like, I'm never gonna be stuck again, right? So, like, that's the only thing I knew. Like, I'll never be stuck again. I don't have this one feeling where I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. But I will say that I had. My mom always worked for herself, and my dad didn't. And I think the one thing that was interesting is I noticed my mom says as a kid I was very observant, so maybe I observed this. Like,
you still are, bro.
Thank you. But my dad. I noticed seeing my dad had a 40-hour job, right? That he didn't really enjoy. I think there are elements he did enjoy, but overall, I think he used to come home from work and it was kind of frustrated and had a lot of tension. And my mom worked for herself, and she also worked really hard. But I felt like she used to come home from work and she had this, like, energy still, like,
sure.
It was just seeing that contrast. It's so hard to not see that as a route your whole life. When your mom is doing the self-employed thing, your dad's doing it, and one person seems like, wow, they seem after work like happy. This person seems sad.
That's so true.
So it's really
that's awesome
weird.
that you had that.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Absolutely. So I would say, to be fair, at an early age, I had these examples in my life. So.
Okay. And what did you do with that, right? So, like, you're at the restaurant, you're working, you're doing your hours. Like, do you remember experimenting with, like, okay, maybe I'm gonna try to make money on my own outside of this box? Like, what did that path look like?
So my buddy Diego, I remember not recently, but man, I'm getting old. I guess it wasn't recent.
30 years ago.
Yeah, I remember him telling me though, like when we were all starting to do our own things, like graduating college, we're getting into the job scene or whatever. We're all trying to make money or the best way we know how. And he was saying like, man, it's like Thomas used to say, like, we should have started like a business, because I feel like in high school, I always tell my friends like, dude, like we all have something to offer. Like we should like start a blog, or we should start like, like this is like in high school. I was like, I think there was always those inklings of like, hey, like one day we're not going to be in school. And like, so I would try to do these experimental things, but you're a kid. They fizzle out because you want to go play games, or you want to like go have fun, and you don't have to make money. It's not a necessity at that point. So I do remember this key moment where I forget which summer it was, but we had cleaned out my parents' garage, and like we'd made like a little chill spot where we had like couches and the pool table. My brother had gotten a pool table, and I had called like a meeting of my friends, and they came, and I had a whiteboard in there, and I was like, we're going to make a blog, and we're all going to write articles on like, what we know.
Hey, what year was this? Do you remember like approximately?
I feel like I was maybe...
How old are you right now? So
I'm 29. I'll be 30 on October 3rd. So I think I was like maybe 16, 17 maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, and I was like telling them like, yo, like we should do this. This is like during summer, of school. And we had kind of gotten to a good point. Everybody was having fun, but it didn't really catch, because I feel like there was like, I don't know. That was just like a moment I remember. I feel like there was a few more, but I can't remember them off the top of my head.
And the blog didn't launch?
The blog didn't launch. I also was like creating like I was trying to create like another blog of my own too on video games, and like just a lot of these seeds of like trying to do certain things, but I guess no real like I'm gonna create a business and like do this thing like when I was younger, just because I was out having a good time with my friends like whenever I had free time. So
that's so sick that one, that you had the idea, that the whiteboard was present, and two, that they actually showed up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's
that support network.
And it's funny because I'm trying to go back into that world of like, what year was it? Was the internet still mysterious?
Yeah,
like, how like back in the day, like people thought the internet like just magically took your money, and like you would get taken, or like just all these weird thoughts.
It was the era of MySpace. I feel like that puts it in perspective. Everybody's like, oh, MySpace, I know, like the HTML.
Not everybody. People were like, who? I was at a college talking the other day, and I was like, MySpace, and there was a person who was like,
scary.
Huh? I was like, what?
That's when you know you're getting old. When you say MySpace, and people are like, MySpace, who's Space?
What?
You want to go over to your space? You're like, no, man. Like MySpace, like Tom. Everybody knows Tom. Come on,
dude. That's nuts, dude.
That's
do you remember? So your first paid gig outside of the box? I'm gonna keep calling it.
Yes, I remember this well, like it was yesterday.
Nice.
I took. So I graduated college, and so I took a 6-month trip. So I had done school from like 5 to, I don't know, it took me a long time to graduate, guys. Like I think I was 20 something when I graduated. It took 7 years to graduate college. But I had done like a big backpacking trip after that, because I was like, finally I'm free, right? It was just that, what do you call it? That pinnacle, like, yes.
No
like,
box.
I'm going to go run away. Yeah, there's going to be no box. So I went to Southeast Asia for 6 months, came back. And I was like, okay, like loans are now kicking in. I got to get a job.
What? Loans?
That 6 months of like, okay, no loan payments. And I was like, shit, I need to get a job. So I went on Upwork, and I was like, okay, like I'm going to find a job. Like this is, I looked
Upwork.com, right?
Yep.
Like a freelancing platform.
That's right. It was Elance at the time.
Elance, that's right.
And I was like, all right, I got to find a job. Here are my bills. This is what I need to cover. And I think my loans were like $600.
Dang.
Right? When I was living with my parents, they were paying for everything.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, that's all I got to pay for. And I think I maybe had a phone bill. So I looked on Upwork, and I found this one guy wanted to like create like a sales resource site.
Okay.
And he wanted a good amount of work, right? And I think it was just one job. I think it was $200 for that job. And it took me like 2 weeks to do. And oh my God, dude, there was probably about 35 revisions on this site. And I remember at the end, he was like, okay, I think his name was Richard, actually. I remember his name.
That's trippy, right?
And I got paid through Upwork. I finished, everything went well. He gave me a good review. I got paid, and I was like, I fucking figured it out. I figured it out. This is
Dude, that's
like
sick,
this.
dude.
I felt like that was cake.
Yeah.
I made $200 for 2 weeks, and I was like, they say it can't be done. Come on.
Looking back at it now, you're like, what the heck?
Not that I didn't have any rent, I didn't have any food to pay for, I didn't have anything, but I was like, shit, this is easy, right?
I love it.
Heck yeah, man. That's so crazy. It gives like a huge perspective of like where you started, where you're headed, and even the jobs and the work that you do now. Like, man, that's just, it's crazy. So so looking back on that and then giving like a glimpse for the listeners so they kind of know the space that you're in, like, what would you say that you do now? What's your passion? Like, what's your work?
Yeah.
And like, what's that journey look like since the beginning?
Yeah. So, so my passion, actually, my like fundamental, like I feel like I was put on this earth to do this thing is like video game design. Like video game design and programming. Like I love programming and I love video games, and I feel like there's a lot of potential in that space that's not tapped yet. Particularly like educationally too. Like I feel like.
Like getting me to like them.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brandon's anti-video game,
yeah,
just so you know.
Like
number one.
The untapped potential is sitting in front of you.
Exactly. If I can get Brandon to like my game, I'm
They'll
gonna
explode.
retire. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well, first, what you would have to do is you would have to get him to understand like what the technology
I'd have
is.
to give him a controller and
Be like-
say press B, and if he knows where B is, then I feel
We
like
have
I'm
to start,
already
we have to
50%
start.
of
That's
the
right,
way there.
that's right.
He's like holding the controller upside down. I'm like, Brandon, no, man, come on.
You're like, this is fire.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. So my passion's in video games. That's what I hope to essentially have my own like game studio one day. Got big dreams, but what was that?
I said, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, among other things, but actually it kind of feeds into the fact that like I also really want to like change the way people work and who they hire, and just I feel like there's a lot of, I guess part of the reason I want to do my own thing is because I feel like if I worked for somebody else, I wouldn't have the ability to like show people that there's another way to do things. Like for me, I want to show.
Yeah, you can't
people.
just speak about it. You got to be about
Yeah,
it.
you got to like do it. People, because I noticed too, like when I took this 6-month backpacking trip, like I did this like credit card hacking miles thing, and everybody was like, "That's not going to work." Then I did it, and then everybody
Give them the synopsis of it. Like, you essentially traveled for free.
Yeah, so like all my flights were free using like this credit card. But like essentially, you spend a certain amount of money that you would have already spent. You get miles. You use those miles to get free flights. And everybody was like, "Ah, they're going to screw you. This isn't going to work." I did it, and all the naysayers all of a sudden were like, "Hey, how'd you do that thing?" Right? And
I want to do it too.
And it's like it's crazy because words don't mean a whole lot to people. I mean, they do, but I feel like people are going to listen to your words, but when you do something, like they're fundamentally going to shift in their perspective because they see something's working for you. It's not just that you're saying it's working; it's that it actually is working. You know?
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I guess passions, video games. That's where I'm driving towards is like creating a game, doing that.
Yeah, and then what about like in between work? Because one thing that I've been talking to a lot of entrepreneurs about since I started this journey on my own is the in between stuff, right? I feel like there's not a lot of people that talk about that. These guys on the podcast are like, oh yeah, you know, I'm in my space, not the social media network, but like my niche, and I'm doing my work. But I'm like, well, when you first started, I know people weren't dropping contracts on your table for like that exact, like make me a game, or like, you know, come speak if you're a public speaker, or you know, whatever the case may be. Like what's in between work? I feel like the unspoken thing that's not talked about is like, no, I had to do other stuff to hustle and make the bills in addition to like my passion, right?
Oh my God, yes.
And so what's that look like for you?
Yeah, so so when I first started this, I mean, with the entrepreneur route, it's interesting, right? Is that like for me, I'm a stubborn bastard, really. Is like
what? No, you're
what?
No way.
I know, right? So I mean, I feel like I have to learn every lesson twice. Unfortunately, I have to like fall and hit the floor, and then I have to do it again. So when I first started, I was like, okay, I want to do games, right? So my partner and one of my good friends from college were like, let's create this game. We thought it would take 3 months. It's now going on 5 years. So so while creating this game, we thought we could release it, maybe make some money. instead we needed a way to fund it. And my thought was like, okay, among bills and funding this game, I need to find a way to do that. As Sam was saying, like, what does that entail? I was like, okay, I'm a programmer. I'm going to just try to find programming jobs like the best way I know how. So I took like some website jobs. And then after I took 2 website jobs, like I said, $200 for 2 weeks, it wasn't a whole lot. A guy hit me up to do tutorials on programming for like Udemy and like e-courses. And I was like, it was the most money I've ever been offered. He's like, I'll give you $25 like an hour to do this thing. Sick. And I was like, dope. And then he said, I will, after every e-course, I'll raise your pay by $1.50. Right.
Wow.
And that was like for me, that
smart guy.
That's right. That guy still stands out to me because he, not only did he see my worth, but he was like, you know what? I'm going to show you that you're worth something by increasing your pay. Cause I didn't really even ask for that. But I ended up staying with him for a few years doing that, or a year, I think. And then I transitioned out of that because I was like, this isn't getting me closer to what I want to do. So I started doing like mobile apps. And my thought too was like, you might be thinking, well, why aren't you doing games, right? Like my thought was like, okay, if I did games in the entrepreneur like side business, that I'd be using all like my creative energy and my juices
towards somebody else's
dream. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do our game on the side. This whole time I've been doing sort of 2 things, like our game on the side and then the moneymaker thing, as you were saying.
Yep.
So I was like, I don't want to use all my creative juices on somebody else. So I was doing mobile apps, websites. It took me 5 years. Just now I'm starting to realize like, you know what? I need to be in my game development engine and making games 24/7 because ultimately that's my craft. I just need to find a space where they're doing the design work and I'm just acting more as a consultant. So that's kind of where I am now. But it took me 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
It's been a long road.
Yeah. I think it's cool, man. I really dig that you said that because that's what I'm looking for too right now. I'm looking for a place where, because yes, we need money, but you can't just think about money. You got to think long game too, right? The entrepreneur world and autonomy. And I think we got to come up with a different word because I feel like not many people can always relate to entrepreneur, right? And I was just listening to Thomas' story. It's almost like I want to just call it being a human, like right? Like you probably want autonomy. You want to be independent. You want to make your own decisions. You want to live by your priorities. Are those all entrepreneur traits? Yes, but they're also human traits in my opinion. That's right. And it's like, you know, I just say all that just to hopefully be more relatable to some people that are listening out there. But, you know, I really, you know, admire your path and your open-mindedness to think about different solutions and think long-term about, well, how am I going to get money? But also, you said, kind of be in my craft. And I like to call it like sharpening your saw.
That's right.
If I could be doing what I'm supposed to be doing for myself, for my purpose, but do it for someone else in the meantime and get paid, man, it's like a win-win. As opposed to being like, okay, so if I'm a programmer or a game designer, and then I'm going to go work at a forklift job, make money. Yeah, nothing against forklift jobs, but you're essentially just getting the dollars there. And in my opinion, I think you're wasting time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I almost feel like, because I did a lot of sort of brainstorming like this last 2 months, like with any whenever you're doing the entrepreneur route, you're going to hit these roadblocks where you're like, shit, what am I doing? Right?
Yes.
So
Every day. Tell us about
that. Right.
Every day.
That's right. Because, you know, it's there's benefits to both worlds. I'm not even going to lie to you, right? Like the entrepreneur world is amazing. It has a lot of benefits. It also has a lot of pitfalls that, you know, that's why people take traditional jobs, because it's easy. There's no consistency when it comes.
Predictive.
It's predictive. And I think people don't realize, like, dude, having a steady paycheck is pretty dope. Like, somebody has to go out and find that money. Yeah. When you're an entrepreneur, you got to go out and find that money. You have to go out and do the work for that money. You have to do everything, right? Which it's not for everybody, because it's not that it's just tough, but some people are like, yo, like, I like programming. You're going to pay me like just to sit here and program? Dope. Like, you know, that's perfect. You know, it works for you, but
I dig that, but I've been thinking lately, I'm like, someone else told me this too. They're like, Sammy, you believe that entrepreneurship is for everyone? And I said, yeah.
Yep.
But like you said, it's not for everyone. It's interesting because I wish we can form a new school of like, because everyone goes through school, but school's not for everyone,
Mhm.
right? And like, what if we did the same thing of giving entrepreneurship or business that same mentality of go through it just to learn,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if you don't do it long term or whatever. I think it would be some valuable lessons
Yeah.
that you can pull, man.
It's interesting because I remember specifically when I was in college, this frustrated me so much. Like, kind of like what I was telling you guys, like for a long time, I knew I wanted to do the entrepreneur route. So like all of college, I knew like, I'm not going to go work for somebody else. And I remember taking classes toward the end in university, and they kept telling us all these things that like, you need to take this class for the job market.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't need to do this way. This is stupid. For me, I was like, this is stupid because like they wanted us to learn multiple game engines, for example. And I was like, okay, like I could see maybe the value, but they were like, you need to learn multiple game engines because you don't know what company you're going to go work for. And I was like, no, I do. Thomas Brown.
That's right, bro. That's
All
right.
right. So what game engine is going to fit me ultimately is going to be the one I'm going to use. And we found one called Unity. And I loved it. And I was like, everything I do from now on is going to be in Unity because I knew this is my tool set, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, you can't do that. And I'm like, but your whole point is to prepare me for this is what
Who
school
I'm
is
going to work for.
Yeah, right? And I'm going to work for me. So this makes the most sense. But trying to convince these teachers, they were like, no, you don't get it yet. You're going to work for somebody. And it's interesting.
Just because it didn't go along with the book that they were selling you for
That's
$500. So
Textbooks.
you wouldn't have needed that.
You
if
know,
you
but it's
just-
interesting because I feel like they have such an ingrained mentality
It's
that they
rigid.
take for granted the fact that they don't even think through the fact that like these people might not want to go work for somebody.
Yeah, they don't. That's
It kind of
disservice. Yeah.
yeah, it interested me. Yeah,
What okay, I'm gonna say this point because it's on my mind, and then we'll move on to the next question. I'm loving listening to your story. You're a pioneer. You're a leader. You're a courageous individual, and I don't think if you would have gone, I hope you think of yourself like that, because if you don't, you should now, because
Yeah,
just
for
listening
sure.
to your story, like there's so many times in your life that you've stood for something that you believed in
Yeah.
and that you felt was right, and you moved forward with that. And I think that's rare because I know people have those beliefs and those thoughts, and they're like, this is not right. Something should be done. And then they just fall into place.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to ask you, like, what gave you the courage to be able to do this every time at the points in your life that you felt resistance, that you didn't want to go to school? You cried on your mom's leg in first grade. You didn't like the job. You ventured out and you did your own thing. You made your first $200. These college professors are giving you, the resistance. Like, how did you find the courage to speak up and to stand on what you actually believed on?
Damn, I got a little touched right there. Like, got some tears in my eyes.
Yeah, bro.
No, but first off, thank you for all the kind things.
Yeah, dude, they're real.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of I guess answers to that, but I think fundamentally, I've always been kind of a sensitive dude, honestly. So the things I feel, even right now, I'm kind of tearing up, but I feel like I feel them to my core, like
Yeah.
to the lowest point. I don't know, like so for me, I feel like I don't just try not to just speak things. I try to like live them. If I feel there's truths, I feel like I don't know. I guess
You got to live them out.
I gotta live them out. I feel like I owe it to me and everybody else to show them that like this world is like amazing.
For sure, dude.
There's so much potential. There's so much that we all take for granted, me included. And I think it's partially that, as you could just see by me getting teary eyed. I'm sensitive. I'm an emotional dude, and I feel like I think I feel things very deeply.
Sure.
So I think that having felt stuck for so long, I still feel that in me.
Yeah.
So whenever I feel like, this is hard, I think about being stuck again, and it gives me like, dude, like that route already. So there's that, and I think. Man, I was raised by Leon Brown. He's a stubborn
Shout out, bro.
MF, man. This guy is, and a lot of people view stubborn as a bad thing,
Sure.
but I think
You've used it in a good way.
Stubborn is also, the other word for stubborn is grit, right? Like
That's right.
I think that
That's a sexier word these days.
that's right. And grit means that you gotta, if you feel something and believe in something, you gotta be steadfast to your beliefs, and you can't just talk shit all the time.
That's
You gotta
right.
You gotta, grit means you're living it. It means things are hard and you're like, all right, keep it coming. Like I'm willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
So without going off on a long tangent, I feel like I just feel like when things get rough, I try to like tap into that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives me some strength.
Yeah, brother.
And support network, man. Like I got people in my life, like all around me, man. That's why I want to be that person for somebody else. That when I'm down, boost me.
Yeah,
Like,
heck yeah.
fill me up.
Heck yeah, dude. Well,
Yeah.
that's what we're about, dude, and that's what we're here for. And I'm listening to your answer, and really, if I can, I'm trying to wrap it up in a sentence. It's like you're being true to yourself,
Yeah.
right? You're being true to who you are, who your heart says.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, because everyone has these feelings, as I say, everyone has these beliefs, but when they operate and when their actions or their movement are not in alignment with what they believe, they're not being true to themselves,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a situation where circumstances are in front of you where you're like, being true to myself means standing out, means potentially looking like a dumbass, means like being criticized. Those outweigh movement for some people, right? And for you, your feelings are stronger, right? And maybe it's because of the superpower of grit or like stubbornness, right?
Maybe.
And it's just like merging these two together, man. I'm like, man, I'm seeing this like superhero Thomas just like form, dude. And it's just like these feelings from the inside with the grit from the outside and like moving through in your actions. Man. I think it's sick, dude.
Yeah, I think too, discipline, man. Just gotta, that's also what it takes, right? If you want to be true to yourself, sometimes you just gotta say like, yo, I'm not gonna do this because ultimately this isn't gonna get closer to like what I want. And that could be really tough. That's the other end, right? Like you can't just be stubborn. You have to also say like you can not do things right for the betterment of yourself.
Well, you said you got to know what you want.
That's right. And that's
like,
not
you
always
can't
easy.
be true to yourself unless you know what you really want.
That is true.
And if you can't define that clearly, then you're just gonna fall back into default mode or what other people are telling you to do because
that's
so
true.
You're there to now you're pleasing other people. So in their eyes, it looks like you're doing the right thing, but it's not what you want. You're not true to yourself.
That's
and
right.
So you fall back. So
and it's interesting because that I guess it's kind of weird when you guys are talking to me about all these questions. You've done a great job with the questions because I feel like I'm like realizing like there's like a path that runs through a little bit.
Yeah, dude.
And I feel like for me, I think that's why I'm so passionate too about like education because I feel like our education, we're trying to prepare kids for the world, right? But we're doing a really bad job of teaching kids like I guess bringing them closer to what is it that you want in life. Like they don't ask that question. They say this is what we're preparing you for. Get ready.
Yeah.
And there's no wonder that kids go off and they just say, oh shit, what does everybody else do? Right? Because it's scary, man. It's scary. And that's I think one thing that I've been given a gift, right? I talked to my girlfriend's sister and she's like, hey, not everybody knows what they want to do.
That's true.
And that's rough because you're not only are you trying to figure out what you want to do, but you're trying to like make sense of the world. For me, I feel like from a young age, I knew what I wanted to do.
Nice.
And it's like, when you have your eye on the prize, it can be a lot easier to run toward it, right? Otherwise you're like, where do I go? Where do I start?
That's a good point.
And so I think we do need to do a better job.
It reminds me of this principle we, in our younger years growing up, when we first started learning about leadership, education, personal development, that principle of define, learn, do. They have it backwards in the schooling system. What you're saying is like they teach you to go learn something, learn, do it, and then that defines
your life,
how you live.
Yeah.
Basically, it tells you what you want.
Yeah.
It gives you what you
Absolutely.
want. You don't have choice in that matter.
That's
because it went backwards. But if you define first, the principle that we learned was define what you want your lifestyle to be, where you spend your time, what you're doing, who you are, so you can be true to it. Define that, then go learn about it.
That's right.
Go learn, educate, because education's out there.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are not against education at all.
No,
Matter of fact, we're big proponents of education and having the right education.
That's right.
And then you go So define, learn, and then you go do what you learn.
Yeah.
Right. Do the work.
And that's the pattern in the system.
It is totally backwards. At
It's totally-
17, 18, they ask these kids, what do you want to do? And they're like, accounting?
Doctor.
And then they go learn accounting for 4 years. They get their degree, and they're like, inside, they're like, I don't really like this.
Yeah.
But I
But
mean,
you
this
just spent all
job
this
is going to
money
be
and resources and
And
Yeah, I just spent 200,000, and
Yeah.
here I am now, and I have to pay this off, so I have to do that.
yeah. And I think too that I was gonna say that. Oh my god, my brain just went completely blank. But
accounting, college.
accounting, college
Sucks. No, I'm
yeah,
just
I
kidding.
know. I was gonna say I think that's why I think I like programming too, because it was always programming's always like you have the problem and then you look for the solution, right? It's not like let me give you all these resources so that you could potentially solve a problem one day. It's like very specific, like here's the
Clear.
problem, now find the resources that will solve that problem.
Sure.
And I love how like oriented toward the problem that is. It's
That's-
really
that's so
it's good, you know. So
That's awesome, dude. All right, so I got a deep question for you.
yeah, all right.
And you may have an answer, may not have an answer, but we're asking these questions. So I think about a moment that like has been almost like a defining moment in your life, and it doesn't have to be professional, it doesn't have to be personal, it could be alone a moment, it could be just a moment in life where you just got some damn clarity, or maybe you encountered some of the biggest resistance in your life, or maybe it was one of the saddest moments of your life, but you remember like, man, this is like really
Think of
poured
something-
into
Yeah,
who I am now. Go ahead.
like think like something as like a turning point.
Turning point. This is a good question. What turning point? I want to say the turning point for me was when I graduated high school. So up until pretty much from as far back as I can remember, you know, from high school back, that was like the moment in my life that I had no control over my destiny. And it kind of makes sense, I guess, if you've been listening so far, like why I might have been so unhappy, because I feel like my driving force is like I like doing things my way, and I want to like you know, like I like to proceed in life doing what I feel passionate about. And if somebody's putting me in a box and I can't see how that pulls me towards my passion, it's like strife all the
Sure.
time, right?
Sure.
So I felt like when I graduated high school, I finally was given the reins to my life.
Freedom.
Yeah, right. I was finally, somebody was finally saying like, whatever you do now, that's on you. And to some people, that's terrifying. And to me, it was terrifying, but it was also like, honestly, it was more liberating. I felt like, you know what? I finally can do whatever I feel is the right thing to do. So I feel like when I first, well, I had terrible grades because I didn't like school, right? So I had like a 2.0 maybe. And so I went to community college, which I actually thought I got a pretty great education at PCC. There I felt like, you know what, Thomas, like no more discounting yourself, no more excuses. You know, if you think you'll be better off doing things yourself, then prove it, you know? So I felt like you've been given the reins. It's time to like take some responsibility, show up, and do a great job. And it still took me 7 years to graduate college, right? So even though I'm saying all these things, I feel like life happens, right? You go through trials and tribulation, and
Yep.
But I feel like that was a turning point for me. It was a point that I realized, like, all right, man, it's on you now. Like, time to show people what you got.
Yeah.
So
That's cool, man.
yeah,
That's when you took the reins. And
that's
you
when I took the reins.
It's like it's all
Yeah,
me now.
yeah.
I think that's an important question to ask. And if you all haven't asked that question, I think it's time to ask it. Like, are you really gonna do what you say you're gonna do, or are you gonna live in your beliefs or be true to yourself?
Right.
I think that's a lesson I'm learning from Thomas, and I've been learning it for many years. I see this guy operate in his own skin and just living out his life the way that Thomas does. And you know, I learn a lot from that, man. And I feel like a lot of people can, because you know, we think we put a filter of our feelings and then what others think and then what comes out. And I feel like you do a great job. I'm sure you still experience that, but I feel like you do a great job of just like feelings, boom, and living life, you know? And it's just like, I think that's so cool, man.
Thanks.
Okay, so, you know, the next phase is like really talking about what are some of the actions and steps that you're taking now to, I don't like using the word balance, but you know, I'll give an overall view of your life right now, right? So you're You're in a relationship. You've been with Natalie now how long?
About 6 years almost.
6 years, man. That's pretty awesome. Y'all live together in Pasadena, beautiful apartment. You guys have a space here at WeWork that really, this space, almost like encourages entrepreneurship. You have your own office with her. You guys are both entrepreneurs. You guys both own your own business. You've been in a relationship for a while. You travel the world. How do you do day to day? Like, because I know that's a big thing. We're in the trenches right now. How do you survive? How do you live? And how do you thrive day to day?
Man, that's a tough question. I guess in a kind of more, are you asking in a more like sort of abstract way, or like specifically like
maybe both, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. Okay. So abstract. What came to your mind when you thought about that?
I guess just like mentally, right? How do I day to day? And I guess like I thought literally like, what does your day to day look like? So I guess I'll kind of go on the more mental side. I guess how do you survive? How do you operate like in this realm? Because it's a challenging place to be, right? When you're trying to find money, you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to and I know when people first look at the entrepreneur route, they tend to see the obstacles, right? Like, oh my God, I feel like the first thing people think of when they think of entrepreneur route is, okay, I got $2,000 a month, I got to pay for bills. Like, how the hell am I going to fill that, right? Which is, it's true, right? Like, how do you feel that? For me, I would argue, and the thing that I think about for like this day to day is like, I think the inverse. Like, you have been given all of your time. Like, you've been given a month's worth of time to fill just $2,000 of bills. How can you not? How can you not?
That's a good mindset.
You've been given all of this time, right? If somebody else is going to pay you, man, a lot. I mean, these companies pay good money for a month's worth of time.
Yeah.
And you only have to pay a fraction of that. Like, for me, I feel like, are you going to cut certain things that are kind of nice from your life, right? Like your coffee in the morning, or, you get to go party with your friends on Friday. Like, you got to cut that. That's kind of nice, right? Yeah. But, and in turn, you get freedom and flexibility, and you get total power and control over what you want to do, right?
Yeah,
like
man.
when Sammy or Gina asked me like, hey, you want to go get coffee randomly on a Wednesday? I could say like, look at my schedule and say like, I could bump that thing to like Saturday. That's like amazing. I didn't miss that opportunity.
Choice, huh?
Yeah. So that, I feel like that's a big thing. Thinking like that helps me in the day to day.
Yeah, that's good.
Like you have the power to do these things. You've been given all of your time. When you are working 160 hours and then somebody asks you to do something, it's tough, man. You got to fit that into your spare time on top of all the errands, and it's rough, man. So that's one thing that always helps me.
That's good.
I guess secondly, my day to day, I've learned this is something I've struggled with a lot. I guess this mentality, but putting myself in a place and willing to pay money to put myself in a place where I genuinely feel like I love being here. I love working here. I love
at the workspace.
That's right. Right, because you're doing this thing for I mean, I would say if you're really going all out, you want to kind of do like a 40-hour work week. Not that that's necessary, because I feel like it's kind of BS too. But
and just like you said, it's like blended, right? It's not like a straight 8 hours in one box. It's like you could do 2 here, go break, 2 there, 4 here, like on the weekend. It's a different thing.
Yeah, and you got to find your structure, right? You got to find what works for you. That's hard too in the entrepreneur world. Is that like what a job does is it gives you a framework for work, right? When you're self-employed, you got to make your own framework, and that takes years to develop. Like, it took me a year or two to get to a point where I was like, okay, this is where I feel productive. This is, but yeah, I would say putting myself in a position and willing to pay money for being in a place that makes me feel genuinely productive and happy. Because when you're in a productive and happy mindset all day, you're going to produce good work. Now, don't get it twisted. Your ass still's got to get up and do the work, right? Like, because I sometimes I convince myself like, yo, I'm paying for the space. I feel good. And I'm like, but you need to do work, Thomas, like, so
I think that could be tricky in the mindset too, because here you have all this free time. Oh, I can go get coffee whenever I want when I need. Well, no, you got to be disciplined. As a matter of fact, you got to be more disciplined,
very disciplined
than you were at a workplace, because the workplace hands it to you and says you have to show up.
That's right. That's right.
Wear this
piece of cake,
and it's all handed to you.
Right.
Well, but when you're not, if you're not mindful of that, you're going to wander off and do
That's
whatever,
right.
and you're not going to get anything done.
That's right. Like I said, you got that 160 hours right to yourself to make that money. Well, you can take a large chunk of that on YouTube and Facebook if you're not saying I'm going to work. That time, that 160 hours can get eaten up real fast, and I feel like people.
So, what distracts you the most?
What distracts
when you're
me?
working on your own?
Man, that's a great question.
YouTube.
No, honestly, I have a lot of systems I put in place purposely to make sure I don't get distracted. So, I always have Do Not Disturb mode on my computer. I always have like the Do Not Disturb notifications
on your phone.
On my phone,
Because
I have
call
this
you
extension
a lot
on YouTube where it eliminates the sidebar.
That's
videos.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
So you've put systems in place to eliminate some of the distractions, but I asked what distractions.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Good point. Honestly, people, because I'm a people person.
Okay.
So I feel like if I'm actually pretty good when I sit down at my desk, from 9 to lunch and then lunch afterwards. When I'm eating lunch, if I get caught up in a good conversation, I'm likely to be like, this is a good conversation. I can always rationalize it.
Yeah.
Like, this is feeding me. But you could say like, oh, all right, but hey man, when you got a job due, like you got to hit that deadline, man. That's
right.
the only way you get more jobs. Like you got to be accountable.
Yeah.
So I would say what distracts me, what takes away my time is good conversations with people during lunch. I feel like I am
or during the
sucker
podcast
for that shit. Like, yeah, or like, just any kind of good conversation eats me up, man.
Yeah.
Because I could always kind of rationalize it in my brain. But then at the end of the week, I'm like, shit, like, where'd all my time go?
So you got to learn to say no.
You got to learn to say no. Yeah, sometimes you got to say, like, let's have a conversation tomorrow, man. I got a deadline, which, yeah. So
I got a question for you. This is projecting out into the future.
Okay.
Where is Thomas 5 years from now? Like
man.
Like you got a magic paintbrush and there's no restrictions. And I know saying that to Thomas is like not really saying anything because he's very analytical. So I'll tell him that and he'll still think through logic.
Oh yeah.
So 5 years from now, right? So what is that? 2024. Where are you at? What's going on? Like we want to paint that vision publicly.
Okay.
So that we can hold you accountable.
Yeah.
But then we also want to, we want to check back in, 5 years from now and see what's going on.
5 years from now. So I've been working on this game, as you guys, if you've been listening this far, like I said, I've been working on this game for quite a while with my buddy, and we're finally at a point where like things are coming together, and it's excited. I'm excited. So hopefully, in 5 years from now, that game is done. Maybe we make some money from that, and we're, man, this is such a hard question. Like Sam said, I'm very analytical. I would say that it's hard for me to know. I feel like there's these points where I feel like I'm more of this. They call it like the agile approach in programming, where like every 2 weeks you check back and say like, hey, where are we? Where are we going? Right. So I feel like when I think to 5 years, I feel like even if I were to say something, I could, 6 months could pass and I could be like, I don't want to do that anymore. Right. Like, cause maybe things have shifted.
Sure.
But I would say having my own, employing people, like giving people that I feel like we already do like this freelance, we pay for freelancers, but I love paying people to do things they're passionate about because it makes me feel like I'm giving them an opportunity and like I hopefully am changing the way people are working and like, so I would love to be able to have enough resources to be able to pay people that I feel like are great at what they do.
That's awesome.
Just fundamentally shifting that in some way and like maybe even having some money from this game to like go to other indie games and say like, yo man, you need help with this? We know some stuff, like let us give you some money or whatever, or like let us help. Like I feel like hopefully I've traveled a few more times by that point.
With me?
Yeah. I would say it would be great if I think where I'm headed, or what I would want to be is just I want to get to the point where I'm making games and I'm getting paid 24/7 for it.
Preferably your
my
stuff.
games. Right now, I've kind of just managed to get to a point where I'm making games 24/7 and getting paid for it, which is like I said, it took me 5 years. That's another thing I want to tell whoever's listening is like all these things that you hear about people saying like, oh, it's 5 years. It takes 5 years to build a business. It takes about like. Just throw that shit out the window. Honestly, it doesn't help in my opinion because I feel like it takes everybody a different amount of time. Just just keep moving forward, keep improving.
Mm.
I know that was like a tangent, but like,
No, it's good.
I feel like I got like a moment to tell people like, that hasn't helped me. You know what's helped me is like, you're going to get there. Put in the time, put in the work, and I guarantee you will improve. And it might take you 10 years, might take you 15, but man, is it really
But
that
maybe it'll
long?
take you one.
Maybe it'll take you one.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would even argue if it's what you feel that's your purpose, what is 15 years, man,
Sure.
to like get to something that you feel like every day you're like, I'm living out what I dreamed of. Like that's nothing, man. But but yeah, I would say 5 years like that. That's kind of where I would love to be. I feel like.
What about personally?
Personally,
relationships.
Yeah, married, probably kids. Yes,
Nice,
yeah,
dude.
my girlfriend's gonna kill
you heard
me.
that?
Probably kids.
Recorded.
Definitely kids.
That was an S at the end of that too.
I know.
Kids, yeah, definitely. I
Or
want
a
multiple
Z
kids.
if they're cool.
I'm a family man. I do. That's another thing I struggle with. Like family and work, gotta have that balance.
That's right.
And that's why I say the 5 years is bullshit because yeah, like maybe you can do it 5 years if you got no family, no friends.
Yeah.
But what is it worth at that point,
That's
man?
right.
You
That's
sacrificed everything to get what you want. Now you have nothing to benefit you anymore. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I would say personally, like I said, travel, married, kids. I mean, I would love to have like some place to call my own, so I don't have to, figure things out with my landlord. Even though I've been completely like, quote unquote, blessed in that regard. Like, but yeah.
So maybe owning like property or something, so you don't have to worry about like when you travel.
Yeah. I think complete like independence to some degree of like I make my decisions. If I want to travel, I don't have to talk to my landlord about like subletting the place or like. WeWork's been pretty great, but maybe even having my own office because
same thing, right?
Same sort of thing.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. All right, so we got to record it now, and we will check back in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last couple questions that I have for you, man, are really centralized and focused around what we got here, what we got with Heroes, and what we got with community. So, one question is kind of speaking generally. What would you say? Why? Let's see. Let's form it like this. How important is community and association to you?
Oh man, I feel like it's. If I had to put a percentage, I would say for me, I'm a very outgoing person. To be fair, too, but I would say 90%. Nothing is worth it in life for me if I don't have the right people around. Just fundamentally.
That's a great quote right there. Nothing is worth it in life for me unless I have the right people around. That could be personal. That could be that could be family. That could be work. That could be everything, right? And literally, Thomas does that very intentionally with making sure that his environment, not necessarily physical environment, but people are around him the way he chooses.
Yeah. I feel like because once again, it kind of goes back to that whole like. I feel like in the U.S. we tend to see this like. We see a lot of these stories from these entrepreneurs that are like given a boatload of money. They sacrifice everything, their personal life, which, hey man, if that's their path, I'm not knocking it. But for me, I just want to give a counter like path, right? Like something else. And that's like, hey, you could have both. Yes. With a little more time, you could have both. You could have people that you love in your life. You could have a good balance of like of spending time with people and also have that dream job that you built for yourself. Right. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't happen in 2 years. Like, it takes more time, but I would say, the right people, man, like people mean everything to me. That's literally for me, I feel like I am who I am because of the people that are around me. And every person in my life is intentionally there. And I think as you get older, you learn that. You learn that your time is valuable, man. Like there's no room for people in your life that just they're kind of there. Like you have so much time and you want to make sure like, man, I'm friends with this person or I'm around this person because they're adding something. And not to just be adding, because you also got to add back, right? Yeah. That's what a community is. You can't just take all the time. But yeah, man, it's huge. It's very, very important. And I feel like, I also want to be that person that's not just taking all the time. That also has enough time to give back and to say like, thank you. So
yeah.
Heck
yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. What now? I love that answer. What would you say you've gotten from being a part of the Heroes community? It's been like he was there actually at the first launch in Eagle Rock. I had an LA and an Inland Empire group, and he was at the first launch party. I got flyers. Nobody picks up flyers. I don't know why I do flyers. And what would you say being a part of Heroes? What value has it added to your life?
Sorry. Yeah, quite a bit. I feel like one thing that I always love about Heroes is, it's, you know what it is that I'm not religious. All right. I'll be the first to say that. I grew up in a very Italian family. Catholicism was very big. And when you're religious, you have these moments. You have Sunday mornings typically, where you go to church, right? And the reason why you go to church is because you go to essentially a place to sort of take a moment and be spiritually present. And I would say I don't know, guys, help me out here. What, like, church is like, be spiritually present, to sort of
like
take a moment to feed your soul and get thankful. And I kind of compare it to that. I'm not religious, so I feel like when I go to these meetings for Heroes, it's a moment for me to take a second and just kind of reflect, zoom out from my day-to-day and be with people that are all kind of going through the same thing and have some community to just, I feel like it zooms me out. Just like I feel like church might for other people. It zooms you out, right? And it kind of makes you feel like, oh man, like I'm not the only one doing that. I'm not the only one struggling. I'm not the only one
Like
doing this.
Decompress kind of.
Yeah. And I feel like one thing I love about Heroes too is the people there are pretty down to earth, and they're real, man. It's not this BS like, oh yeah, like this, like I'm really dope and I have all this stuff, and like it's kind of like, yo, like we do that. Like the one thing I really like is the rose and thorn. So we typically do like, good and bad thing. That's like a nice starting thing to help me zoom out, right? Like we all have good, we all have bad, and it helps me realize that like we're all aiming at the same things, but we're taking different paths to get there.
That's right.
And I love that. Like, I feel like we can get so sucked into our own world and thinking that like our way is the way.
Sure.
But there's no one way that's the way.
That's
and
right.
if you hear that, fucking stop listening. Like, that's some bullshit. I'm sorry. But
Hell yeah.
there is no one way. And I feel like I'm also saying that because I can get caught in this mindset of like, oh man, this guy's really successful. He did it this way. Why am I not doing it this way?
That's right.
He said not to do that. I'm like, wait a second. That guy's a human.
That's right.
He has one set of experiences. Why am I thinking he's a god?
That's right.
He's probably got some good stuff to say, but like, man, you might come from a completely different place, and all those lessons might not apply to you.
For sure.
So I feel like when I'm in the Heroes group and I'm listening to these things, it kind of gives me that like, whoa, like what works for me might not work for Brandon or Sammy or the inverse, like, oh shit, like that's really valuable insight that can apply to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So I love that. I really love that. And I feel like there's a lot of educational opportunities too. Just like, oh, this is really interesting. And I said I'm a people person, so I feel like you guys have done a great job with bringing people in that are like experts in certain things, just to talk about that thing. And I love being around people that are passionate about what they're doing, because I feel like it's fun to listen to people that are excited about shit. Like, I just love that, man. Like, when somebody's like, I feel like Brandon could talk about fucking hiking for hours. And I'm like, after 2 hours, I'm like, all right, fuck, a rock is a rock, dog. But no, but
but you don't understand.
Yeah, you don't understand, man. No, but it's awesome because it makes you feel like, oh man, like I should like try more, think about that thing, or maybe even like, like I'm a programmer, like what the hell does hiking have to do with me? But then you start seeing like, oh shit, there's some things that are similar on those paths, even though they might be seen.
Hiking will help your creative ability.
That's right.
Open up your mind.
There you go.
You'll start creating the most amazing video game.
No, but it's like it is like that. It's like you start drawing these paths that are similar that you might not have normally seen that line. So, yeah. Long answer. I'm sorry, but
No, that's good, dude.
It's powerful because the heroes.
All I heard is that Heroes is Thomas's church. That's good enough for me, bro.
that's right. That's true.
So we invite people in, and it's an open group.
That's right.
It's a loving group.
That's right.
One of the things that we talk about is heroes exist to give every man a chance at true belonging, and we literally mean every man. So it's not, you don't subscribe to our philosophy or thought, belief system, whatever. I'm different, like you said, you're different, but that's powerful because we can come together and we can learn from each other. We can grow. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to follow your way.
Yeah.
But hey, man, if something's working for you, I can encourage you in it and support you in it. If something that you're doing kind of, adds value to me and I want to apply it to my life, I have the chance.
That's right.
And I can choose to do that.
Yep.
So it's huge, man.
Yeah, and I would even say too that like the one thing I guess another thing that's really cool is that like I really like too that I feel like so I would say I'm probably like agnostic, right? Like I don't know what is the truth, but I feel like there's probably something bigger, let's say, right? But I know that there's other guys, right, that are, Catholic or Christian or whatever. We all subscribe to different, let's say, religions. And I feel like sometimes you can get in these groups where
one agenda's pushed.
It's kind of one agenda's pushed. Sure. I mean, in the best way possible. I'm sure that person might not like be trying to push that agenda, but I like that also that we're all raw in what we believe in.
Yeah.
Right. So like
these
guys are raw in what they believe in. They will like talk about God or whatever. And for me, I'm like, dope. I'll talk about like I don't know if I can exist, and there's no animosity there. No. It's like. It's all good, man. You tap into whatever feeds you, and I feel like the rest of the guys respect that, and I really respect that because you get a lot of people that, you say what you believe in, and then, it gets a little murky.
Judgment.
So,
I mean, that's a big trait that we do, and I think it's interesting because I say that we filter, but honestly, I think the group does. I think the group naturally, organically filters one main quality, which is unconditional love.
That's right.
Like every one of the guys unconditionally loves each other and encourages each other.
Yeah.
And honestly, if there's one universal principle we operate through, it's that one.
That's right.
And we're looking how we can learn.
Yeah.
And move in that direction. But man, it's been awesome, Thomas.
Brother.
Thank you for the space, dude. Thank you for opening up and sharing. I hope it's been good for you too, because a lot of the guests jump on, they're like, dude, that was really cool, like speaking out loud some of those things.
Yeah, I feel like that. Can I add one thing?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I feel like I've been knocking teachers on this whole thing. I just want to clarify. I just want to say one last thing. Like all you teachers out there, I respect you, and I know you guys are probably under your own stresses. Like I feel like it's the whole agenda. But I just wanted to say like sometimes people are doing their best and their hands are tied also.
Sure.
For all you teachers that your hands are not tied and you just suck, well then, screw you guys. I'm just kidding.
We love teachers. The advice we have is break free from the box.
That's right. Let's make it something. Let's open the box. Let's just have it all different, right? Yeah. Anyway, let's have one plug for you, bro, because this is another opportunity. You have your own company. You have your own gaming company. How can people reach out to you if you want them to? If not, maybe just I don't know if there's a way that people can reach out to you.
Honestly, I would say. The company name is A6 Games. That's like the game company I have with my partner. And you could reach me, I would say, so Thomas at a6games.com, I believe is my Gmail for that. I'm trying to think if I have any other way to reach me.
Thomas Brown, right?
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, Thomas Brown. You can see me, on LinkedIn. I would say those are probably my way of reaching me. I get back an email probably best way. And if you want to talk or whatever, just let me know. I feel like I'm always down to.
Is there any kind of work you're looking for, or work that you could offer to?
Yeah. I mean, I know I didn't talk a whole lot about it, but it's kind of funny because that's like my huge passion. But I'm really passionate about games, and I do particularly. I'm really passionate about Unity as a game engine, and doing games using Unity, and kind of honestly like. Right now, I've been kind of reaching out to indie developers and helping them sort of like refactor their projects and just kind of being consultant to them just helping them move their needle further along, right? Yep. Because we can all sort of use help in the things we're passionate about. So I would say, if you find yourself in need, I'm available, and I'm trying to kind of to work out that stuff as well. I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but yeah. So I look forward to whoever contacts me. Like that'd be awesome. If I can help in some way, let me know.
Yep.
I really genuinely mean that.
He does,
Yeah.
and he's genius at what he does. I think. I mean, I'm not a gaming expert, but this guy he thinks differently about everything, right? And so
Thank you.
you don't get the typical answer or the textbook approach. There's outside the box, literally,
Yeah.
thinking on solutions. So anyway, yeah, check him out. Look at his A6 games. I think that's
A6
sick. I think it's gonna be
games,
huge, man. 5 years from now, it's
We'll
gonna be
see.
it's gonna be like the big gaming engine, man. All right, well, Thomas, we appreciate you, man. We really thank you for
Thank you,
taking the
guys.
time, dude.
Seriously.
And yeah, man, we had a blast, brother.
Sounds good, man.
Heck
All right,
yeah.
guys.
Recognition.